Hello, thank you for watching. We today will have a work again on the first class of the High School of Spiritual Science, which has been given by Rudolf Steiner in German 1924. And we have a translation of this text, and so it's possible to say it in and work it in English. So like you can hear it, my mother tongue is not the English, so please excuse me for that. And we will do this in mind that it is a kind of an worship to God. It's in a kind of a Christian Michael worship to God. So please be very earnest about how to work with it if possible, and if you really see this is necessary and interesting for you, watch it in one part without breaks, and how much and how far you can go by try to be not disturbed by anything, by any device or something like this, so that you can really concentrate on the text, on the mantras, and be in a mood of worship, and like you would go to a church, and be also very concentrated and conscious about what which words are spoken to you, so that you can in a rightful spiritual way live with that words. Like you know and you see in the world, we have something which we can call it a fight for the future for the human being. We have to stand up in our rightful way to come into the spiritual world, to come into a knowledge of what we are as a human being and what the world is. Like it is a world of spirit. We are a spiritual being. We have a soul and we have a physical body, and we have to work on our whole social organisms to transform it in a new way of a spiritual life, in education, in medical systems, in science, in religions, in the way how we handle government, how we handle economy, how we handle our spiritual life. We have to change all this for a better way. And today I will start with some words from Rudolf Steiner, what he has called the Michael imagination. It is, these are some words spoken to the good gods, to the angels, to help the human being in their way of knowledge, and also words to the human beings who want to go in a rightful way, to develop their spiritual being, to develop their moralic being, to get a new human, and to get a new human society on earth. Arisen from powers of the sun, shining, world-blessing, spiritual powers, for Michael's garment of rays, you are predestined by thought divine. He, the Christ herald, revelate in you, bearing mankind, holy world will. You, the bright either world beings, bear the Christ word to mankind. Then Michael appears, the Christ herald, in awaiting, thirsting souls. To them shall shine your enlightening word in the spirit man world's time. You, the students of spirit knowledge, take Michael's wisdom beckoning, take the world's will, love, word, in the soul's high targets, effective in. We today will work on the lesson number 6, and I will start again with the first word. O man, know yourself. So resounds the world word. You hear it soul powerful. You feel its spirit vastness. Who speaks so world vastly? Who speaks so felt heartily? Does it act through space distant radiation? In your senses being experience? Does it sound through time's wave weaves into your life evolving stream? Is it you yourself who in space feeling, in experiencing time, creating the word, feeling for aim, sensing in space emptiness of soul? Because you have the force of thinking, losing in the time-destroying stream. My dear friends, during this meeting we are considering the truths which can be learned from the guardian of the threshold, and the guardian's continuous admonition is that man be aware that he advances spiritually when he becomes conscious of his true relation to the world. To become conscious of his true relation to the world, he first gets to know the world by observing the kingdom of nature, which are external to his own being, the animal kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, and the mineral kingdom. These relations offer him the opportunity to admire them and to use them to carry out his own will impulses. Man considers them to be his external world, and with normal consciousness he is hardly aware of how he has evolved out of this world, how a deep relationship to that world exists with him, in him, However, one cannot feel this relationship by merely letting one's gaze wander over this exterior world. One must advance to a self-knowledge of belonging to this world. And when one wishes to gain this self-knowledge, my dear friends, then one may not simply continue to see things as first glances provide. Rather must one return to what is revealed between them. Since the modern phase of human evolution began, we seldom see what is revealed between the things. We see the three kingdoms of nature in the outside world, but as you know, my dear friends, behind the kingdoms of nature we have what is called the world of the elements. We can say our feet stand on the ground of the solid earth. It is written on the board, earth. And what the solid earth consists of is also present in the animals, plants and minerals, and also in our physical human body. And when we lift our gaze from the ground beneath our feet to what is to a certain extent at our own height, what is present is not only air, for the air is also present by the watery element. Also, it is through the man's life on earth has developed in such a way that he only senses this water element in fine solution in the air which surrounds him, and in order to use it in his own organism, it must be condensed. It is nevertheless true that he also lives in this watery element. And over earth is written on board water. And man also lives in the air element through which he breathes. And over water on board is written air. At the moment when we observe these elements, we cannot speak of them as we speak of the other beings of the nature kingdom, which we see before us in sharply defined contours. But in the solid, as such in the earthly, we can only say that we live in it. We are too closely related to the earthly to specifically differentiate it. We do not specifically differentiate what is a part of ourselves. We do differentiate a table or a chair which exist outside ourselves. We do not consider what is inside us as having clear boundaries. We do not use our lungs or heart within us as having clear boundaries. Only when they are made into objects in anatomy do we see them so. But just as we are related to our own bodies, we are also to a larger extent related to the elements. We live in earth, we live in water, we live in air, we live in warmth. They belong to us. They are too close to us to be understood as very simply contoured in the world. Let us now lay out the element world before us, a world which is around us and at the same time within us, so that we must consider it as the content of the world and of ourselves. So we have what we designate as earth, what we designate as water, what we designate as air, and what we designate as worms. And above air on board is written worms. When we go further up, out of the thicker substances into the etheric form, from worms, which is already etheric, we come to the light, and above worms is written light. And up to what we have always described with a dry, abstract expression, chemical ether, and its effects, because the ordering, the shaping, the formation of the world is affected by it, we shall call that great chemicality of the cosmos cosmic shaping. And above lightning is written cosmic shaping. And then we will call that what is highest in the etheric, in the ether, is life ether, cosmic life. And above cosmic shaping is written cosmic life. Well, my dear friends, we have already seen from the previous lessons that the human being, according to the manner in which he lives on the earth, is not equally related to all of the elements in the same measure. In fact, the human being only lives in a completely intimate relationship with the element of worms. For spiritual progress, it is necessary to be fully conscious of such things. Just think how much you directly feel warmth and cold to be part of you. The difference between warm and cold affects you strongly. Even air circulates affects you less. Whether the air is good or bad, you notice indirectly according to its effect to your organism. The effect of light is the same. Nevertheless, man is very closely related to air and light. He is extraordinarily close to them. But man is relatively distant from the watery element, among the denser one, even though he is related to them. Nevertheless, the watery element is very closely connected to human life. Image, my dear friends, a very vivid nightmare and consider how your perspiration, that is the secretion of the watery element, is affected by it. Notice how the watery element plays a significant role in sleep. The human being lives in the watery element. The liquid element dissolved in his environment are of great importance for him, but none more directly than worms. Whether it is warm or cold, men feel it as being part of himself. When it is warm, he is warm. When it is cold, he is cold. When we walk into fog, for example, the fog's master has an important but an indirect influence on us, something which normal consciousness isn't very aware of. I'll put it this way: we walk into fog and our own watery element merges in a certain sense with the outer world's watery element, and with this easy transition from our own watery element to the outer world's watery element, we feel our connection to the whole cosmos. Contrary to the transition from our watery element to dry outer air. Dry air let us feel more human. Watery air let us feel our dependence on the cosmos. But nowadays we have no training in such things. In electrocycle in The Hague, which has been printed, I went into detail concerning man's dependence on the elements. The elements exist, and it pertains to esoteric life to be aware of this dependence in practice. Man's relation to the earthly elements lies even deeper in the subconsciousness. What does man know about his relation to the earthly element? He knows that salt is salty, that sugar is sweet. They belong to the earthly element, but about the processes of metamorphosis that salt and sugar undergo in his organism, how he acts together with the cosmos in dissolving the sugar or the salt within his organism, how certain cosmic forces work in the organism when the sugar's sweetness courses through his body, or the saltiness of salt courses through his body. He is mostly unaware, save for the slight reflex of the saltiness, of the sweetness on his taste buds. These are profoundly meaningful processes. The universe has opened its doors, so to speak, to certain forces when the human being dissolves sugar on his tongue or transfer it to his organism. It is also the case that whereas these denser elements have an indirect influence on the human being, the etheric, finer elements, cosmic shaping and cosmic life also have an indirect influence on the human being, a hidden influence. The most evident influence on man comes from the middle element, warmth. The influence of light and air are strong, evident also to ordinary consciousness, but the influence of water and earth on one hand, and on the other hand of cosmic life and cosmic chemical shaping lie in the unconsciousness. Therefore man should be aware during his earthly life that he lives closely with these middle elements, the air, the warmth and the light, whereas his consciousness has been withdrawn from his relation to water and earth and to cosmic shaping and cosmic life. In the days when the old instinctive consciousness prevailed, there was also a nuance of clairvoyance, and when the students in the mysteries reached a certain stage in their development, they were cautioned. Trust the fire, trust the air, also trust the light, but beware of the underworld, water, earth, beware of the overworld, cosmic shaping and cosmic life. For due to the fact that they lie so deeply in the unconsciousness, Lucifer's temptation appear in cosmic life and cosmic shaping, and Ahriman's temptation appears in earth and water. So we have written on the board to the highest elements cosmic life and cosmic shaping Lucifer, and then the lowest at water and earth Ahriman. In the mysteries, esoteric instructions always indicated that man should find the right relation to these elements, feel his relationship with the elements in the correct way. When one advances to imaginative life, he feels exactly this relationship to the elements. With normal consciousness, we look around, recognize the animals, plants and minerals as existing outside of us. When, however, we recognize the elements in their relationship with us, then we may not look around at the world, but we must feel, experience what is in us and the world at the same time. Then, when we have advanced an imaginative life, we are able to feel our relationship with the world. If we develop this feeling in the right way, we will make a profound admission. This admission to ourselves is progressive, true self-knowledge. We realize that one is only human when he is released from the world to which he is inwardly connected, from the earthly world where he stands alone, as it were when the plants, animals and minerals exists outside of us, are foreign to us. But if through imaginative knowledge one becomes aware of his relationship with the earth, then he will no longer feel himself in his humanity. He will feel himself in his animality. He feels the inner relationship of man to the extended animal domain. And when he feels himself as one with the water element on earth, he becomes aware enough to say, in reality, you are related to the vegetable kingdom. There is something in you that is asleep and as dreamy as the plants. And if one becomes aware of his relationship with the air, he feels the mineral element within him. He feels something filling him through the whole skin. As soon as we enter the element world, with imagination, we feel related to the animals, plants and stones, and we feel differently towards the kingdom of nature when we feel that we belong to them as well. We feel the inner relationship to these kingdoms in the following way. We look out at the animal kingdom. We observe the indolent animals which slowly take one step after the other. We observe the rabbit one and the flying birds. We observe the inherent movement in the animals which fill the world with movement from out of their own being. And then we say to ourselves, all that which comes from the innermost being of the animals is revealed to be the same as our own will. And we feel the relationship of our own will with the animal world. But there is something else. one feels fear of oneself. This is what is considered positive. That whoever enters into esoteric life feels this fear of himself. Not so that he gets stuck in it, but so that he may transform it into a higher psychic force. It is like this when we become aware that our human form exists because we stand alone and the kingdoms of nature are beyond us, where we can look at them. Then we feel that the earth in its true elemental nature does not make us human. It makes us animal. We are animals. As far as the earth is concerned, we are animals. And because the earth element is always present, the danger exists that we think into animal nature. And when we don't morally understand this theoretically, as it is mostly the case nowadays, but also feel it, we become fearful that at any moment we may fall into animality. But it is just this fear which encourages us to always wish to rise ourselves over this animality, to step out of the elemental life into the life which surrounds us with an external, perhaps strange world, but which also introduces us to true humanity, to feelings recognize our relation to the world is what leads us to true esoteric knowledge. And when we feel our relationship with the world's water, with the water element, then we realize as far as water is concerned, we should not be human but vegetables. And our feelings, which have a dream-like nature, I have often explained our feelings have a conscious tendency to be vegetable, to be plant-like. Just try to think seriously about your innermost feelings and you will feel the vegetable or plant nature of the life of feeling. And then you will have the feeling that you are not only in danger of descending in animality, but also of living on with a lamed consciousness like a vegetable, sleeping, dreaming. But this feeling of lameness, which lies deep in the subconscious, must be transformed into the feeling of awaking to humanity. Fear of animality must be transformed into the courage to rise yourself to humanity. The feeling of vegetable or plant lameness must be transformed into an awaking call to inner strength to develop into a fully awake person in the world. And when we become aware of how we live in the air element, then we can see how in reality all thinking, this is unknown to people, is nothing other than a refined breathing. Thinking is refined breathing. The thoughts in which we live are absolutely a refined breathing process. On one side the breathing in stream, holding the breath, and breathing out act in a more coarse way into our blood circulation. On the other side, but more refined, into the vibration of the brain organs. And the breath circulating there is known as thinking in the physical world. Sublimate breathing is thinking. The individual who has advanced to imagination no longer believes in this abstract thinking existing as a kind of demos substance in the brain. He feels the inhalation, the expanding of the breath in the brain. He feels how the breath breathes out. When the breath expands in this way, then Jesus, the closed concept, arise, closed ideas. If it encloses something else in waves, the ideas of self-movement arise. It is merely a refined breathing process which weaves and waves within us, which we designate as thinking. When one feels I inhale, I draw the breath up to the brain, I let it strike my ear, and one feels what I hear as tone, as sound, as klang, lives in me a thought. I let the breath strike my eye. It lives in me as what I see as color. It is the inner language of breathing which acts as representation in thinking. When breathing, completely refined, strikes the sense organs, it creates my mental pictures and images. But when one becomes aware of this, becoming a thinker and a breather, so to speak, then one feels that this refined to thinking breathing process is like an organized mineral, like an organized stone, which fills him. You know, the oxygen is transformed into carbon dioxide in man. This reception of carbon dioxide in the finer branches of breathing in the human head is tantamount to the capture of the carbon dioxide. It is a mineralization process, and the more we are able to internalize this capture of carbon dioxide by oxygen, the more we are conscious of the mineralization process. We take the carbon into ourselves, and carbon is the philosopher's stone. Thus, within man, carbon is the philosopher's stone. Read how the old instinctive clairvoyants described the philosopher's stone. You will find them saying, the philosopher's stone can be found everywhere, only people don't recognize it. It can be produced everywhere. It can found at its own place in the earth. They describe in detail how carbon is produced by burning wood. The philosopher's stone can be produced anywhere. It is carbon. It is in the coal mines. A mineralization process. One feels mineralized within by the combusted adaptation process, just as we feel ourselves to be plant-like by the watery process and identify with the animals by living with the earth element. This is the exhortation the guardian gives to man. He must be aware of his relationship to the kingdoms of nature. Therefore, we have the exhortations in the form of spoken meditations. And if man lets them work with deep feeling on his sensibility, he will be aware of his relationship with the earth element, which is related to his will, with the water element, which is related to his feeling, with the air element, which is the way I have described it, is related to the thinking. You step into the earthly being with your will forces unfolding. This is an unconscious process. Every time we will something, we climb down into the earth element, but normal consciousness knows nothing of this. At the moment when the downward climb becomes conscious, man transforms himself from a human to an animal nature. He seems like some kind of animal, at least in the etheric form, which he then observes. I don't mean that he will exactly become an elephant or a bull, but something like that for the element of will. Yes, he gives the impression of being bull-like, elephant-like, eagle-like, and so on. As thinker, you bestride the earthly being. Thinking power will make you show your own animality. But such exhortations by the guardian of the threshold, my dear friends, are not to be taken as concepts or theories. They are meant to be experienced by the whole human being. If we look at where the will is heading, we become aware of our animality and we fear our own self, which, however, must be transformed into psychic courage. Then one advances further. Then one can enter the spiritual world. The fear before your own self must transform in your soul courage. Here we have the first descent, climbing downwards, stepping downwards to the kingdom where the Ahrimanic forces work so strongly. Our correct comportment is indicated by the exhortation just given by the guardian of threshold. You step into the earthly being with your will forces unfolding. As thinker, you bestride the earthly being. Thinking power will make you show your own animality. The fear before your own self must transform in your soul courage. As a rule, what helps us most towards spiritual advancement is the overcoming of something that drags us down. When we overcome something which drags us down, like this fear of our own animality, and transform it by our own inner act into psychic courage, then it becomes an impulse toward a higher humanity. It's something we need to advance spiritually. We learn about the next descent into the water element through the words of the following exhortation by the guardian of the threshold. You live with the water being only through the feeling stream weaving, pervading a waking water being. It will the soul in you give as a dull bland existence, and your selfhood's lameness must lead you to self-awakening. The transformation to the opposite of this sleep-filled dreaminess, if we really descend consciously, becomes awakening in ourselves. And it is written on the board, you live with the water being only through the feeling stream weavening, pervading, wakening water being. It will the soul in you give as a dull, bland existence, and your selfhood's lameness must lead you to self-awakening. And when the human being feels his relationship with the air element, then even with normal consciousness he feels the relationship more strongly. He descends less deeply into the subconscious. Nevertheless, a trace of Ahrimanic temptation remains in this descent. When we live in our remembrance, in our memories, we are mostly in an inner breathing activity. If we refine normal breathing to thinking of what is in our environment, then very little danger is present. If memories arise, however, with breathing coming from within, danger is still present. Although it is the easiest to observe, and it is in this descent from thinking to perception where we mostly are concerned with our memories, mental pictures, mental images. It is about this that the guardian of the threshold admonishes. You perceive in the air weaving only memories, mental image forms. Take in willingly the air being. You can do this, my dear friends, using the same inner force we use when combining one thought with another in the performance of normal activities. We are used to moving a chair from one place to another when we make the effort, but we are not used to moving a thought from one place to another. We prefer to think according to the guidebook as events present themselves. We would like the book to show us the sequence of thoughts, that the newspaper indicate the sequence of thoughts to us, and we are satisfied when they do it. It is as if we expected that everything we do through this exertion of our will be set in motion by an objective power from without, as if your arm is to be raised so you can grasp a chair, as if a spirit stood there and placed your legs one after the other so you can walk. As far as thinking is concerned, it is as though we expected our legs to be moved for us so we can walk. It will be your own soul, threatened as a coldly hardened stone. In this mineralization process, whoever does not know imagination does not realize how hard ordinary thinking is. Ordinary thinking is stone hard. One really feels thinking with angels and edges and movements when one finally gains admittance to the spiritual world. Such thinking actually hurts when it appears in its particular abstract forms. Whoever knows spiritual life is able to feel empathy for what is thought as a result of human feelings and impulses. He can feel it himself when fits of hate and anger are expressed in thoughts, but he feels inwardly wounded as if by sharp angels and edges when the abstract thoughts of contemporary civilization enter his being. He will not be aware of the suffering which is caused by today's thinking if he does not know this sentence. Your own soul will threaten you as coldly hardened stone. But when one consciously descends to the kingdom of memories, the kingdom of airy breezes, where breath is grasping by thinking, then what I described happens. But this inner death of thinking, this death by freezing, must inspire us to the contrary, to create spiritual vitality in thought from inner strength. But your selfhood's death by cold must give way to spirit fire. These are the three exhortations concerning the netherworld. the world of the lower elements which the guardian of threshold directs to those who come to the threshold by showing them how man must be aware of his kinship with the three kingdoms of nature, if he wishes to be knowledgeable, how he must be aware of his animality and the animals in his environment by virtue of his kinship with the earth element, how we must be aware of his own blend nature, and therewith the blend life of his environment by virtue of his kinship with the water element, how he must be aware of his own mineral kingdom, his own mineral nature, his own stone nature by virtue of his kinship with the air element, and therewith the nature of the mineral kingdom of his environment. Fear, lameness, and death must develop as negative characteristics, but must metamorphose into the positive characteristics of courage, wakefulness, and vitalizing fire. That is also what the guardian of threshold calls out to the person striding by. First, the inner feeling of fear of falling into animality, then the inner feeling of helplessness in plant-like lameness, then the desire to oppose the coldness of stone by engendering, virtualizing fire in the soul. Thus, the guardian of the thresholds threefold exhortation is: you step into the earthly being with your will forces unfolding. A thinker you bestride the earthly being. Thinking power will make you show your own animality, the fear before your own self must transform in your soul courage. You live with the water being only through the feeling stream weaving, pervading, wakening water being. It will the soul in you give as a dull blend existent, and your selfhood's lameness must lead you to self-awakening. You perceive in the air weaving only memories, mental image forms. Take in willingly the air being. It will be your own soul, threatened as a coldly hardened stone. But your selfhood's death by cold must give way to spirit fire. Here, in the lower part of the above listed, marked with "We enter Ahriman's kingdom and are warned by the guardian of threshold as to how we can save ourselves from Ahriman's temptations. And here where we are in earthly life and we wish to enter in the esoteric, in light, world shaping and world life, we absorb the light. Normally we do not know that the light unites with breathing. When it penetrates the eye, warmth is between them. The breathing of air combines with the light, the representation of the perception arises. We live in light in that we form thoughts, just as towards the lower kingdoms. We live in the air in breathing. We hold true thoughts back. We hold thoughts back from the light. We don't realize that thoughts can only live in us if they are illuminated by the light. If breathing is illuminated by the light. For those who have advanced to imagination, thinking is a hushed breath illuminated by ingested light, made vibrant by it. Here are the gentle waves of breath. They are illuminated by light, for in spiritual science everything which works through the senses is designated as light. Not only what works through the eyes, also what works through sound is light. Also what is sensed as touch is light. All perception through the senses is light. But when we become aware that thinking, this having thoughts, is refined breathing, weaving upon the light. It is as when one sees the surface of the sea upon whose waves the sun's light shines. Also a thought, one were inside and could feel the surging of the waves and the light shining on them. It is all perception when one experiences it from within. Now Lucifer, temptation appears, for this is all wonderfully beautiful, something which causes enormous delight and complacency. A terrible wantonness overcomes man. He becomes easy prey for Lucifer's temptation and enticement to pull him away from the earth into the beauty of the cosmos, where Lucifer reigns. He wants to tear man away from the earth's element and rise him up to the kingdom of angels, though that after each sleep he no longer wants to return down to the physical body. Here is where the Luciferic temptation appears, whereas in the realm of the denser elements the Ahrimanic temptation appears. What is important here is that we heed the guardian of thresholds warning and not enter the realm without having determined not to forget the earth's needs. Then the bond with the earth upon which we have still to stride will remain unbroken. Therefore the guardian of thresholds says, "You hold from shining light and power thoughts only you sustain within. When light shine in you doth think itself, will then untrue spirit being, as selfhood mania arise in you, reflecting on the earth's needs, sustains you as a human being." And it's written on the board. You hold from shining light and power thoughts only you sustain within. When light shine in you doth think itself. Thus man is totally related to the shining light through imagination, and his thoughts are no longer abstractions, but as light playing upon the waves of breath. And it's written on the board, will then untrue spirit being, as selfhood mania arise in you, reflecting on the earth's needs, sustains you as a human being. If we advance further to the etheric element, the Luciferic temptation becomes more intense. They are not only our thoughts, which are relatively easy to control, come into consideration, but also the element of feeling. For it is in his feelings that man holds on to the substantial, the cosmic shaping or formation, which works and weaves in the chemical ether. If he now advances to imagination, really integrates with the cosmic chemistry, it is quite different from the comfortable, virtuous, earthly chemical laboratories, where the chemist stands at a bench and everything is outside and beyond him. Man must be within matter, be himself within the mixing and the separating. Then he will become a cosmic chemist and be integrated in his chemical processes. With this integration in cosmic shaping, he feels the Luciferic temptation in the form of helplessness. First, man is transported in a certain sense to inner voluptuousness, so he can be spirit. He is unwilling to return if he does not bear in mind the earth's needs. Now he is made helpless, not strong enough in his humanity to re-enter. He must aware of the helplessness of soul in that he only enters this spiritual world once he has acquired a love for all that is worthily on earth, for the earthly values. The guardian of the threshold speaks of cosmic shaping you only sustain, your feelings held fast within. When cosmic shape itself feels within you, so will unconscious spirit experience differs in you the essence of selfhood. But love to earthly value will rescue your human soul. Of cosmic, it will written on board, of cosmic shaping, you only sustain your feelings held fast within. When cosmic shaping itself feels within you, so will unconscious spirit experience, which comes from Lucifer, stifles in you the essence of selfhood, but love to earthly values will rescue your human soul. Man can only reach his cosmic goal if he becomes an angel at the right time. During the Jupiter evolution, today's humanity will rise to angel rank. Lucifer's temptation consists of wanting to rise man to a tuned, immature angel too early during the Earth period. In that way the human soul would be lost, and tuned angel soul would take its place. We should listen to the guardian of the threshold's exhortation. But love of earthly values will rescue your human soul. The most intense temptation comes when we ascend to the last element, to general cosmic life. What is still present there is will, which, however, is present as in sleep, as I have often explained. If it is awakened through imaginative knowledge, we become aware, unlike in our limited earthly life, which is enclosed in our skin. We become aware of sharing in cosmic life, and in that instant we are dead. Because to consciously live in cosmic life means to experience death as an individual being. Universal life kills us if it holds us, like the insect that flies into the flame, greedy for the fire, for the light. In the instant that it flies into the flame, it dies. Thus does man as an individual die in general cosmic life, if he consciously enters in with it with his spirit. We should even dare to think of entering into the element without having first developed a good-given, spirit-given will for the earth, that is, without being fully conscious that on earth we are carrying out the intention of the spiritual beings. If we completely fill ourselves with inner dedicated glowing love toward the God-given will, then we shall not succumb to the temptation of becoming a degenerate angel, instead of remaining a human being. Thus, therefore, in the Guardian of Thresholds exhortation, of cosmic life you only sustain, your will held fast in you, is cosmic life fully grasp you, destructive lust for spirit then will kill awareness of self in you, but spirit-given will for earth makes the God in man do reign. And it is written on board. Of cosmic life you only sustain, your will held fast in you. If cosmic life fully grasp you, destructive lust for spirit then will kill awareness of self in you. But spirit-given will for earth makes the God in man to reign. And here we have the Guardian of Thresholds threefold exhortation referring to the upper ether region in the above list. You hold from shining light and power, thoughts only you sustain within. When light shine in you doth think itself, will then untrue spirit being as selfhood mania arise in you, reflecting on the earth's needs, sustains you as a human being. Of cosmic shaping you only sustain, your feelings held fast within. When cosmic shape itself feels within you, so will unconscious spirit experience stifles in you the essence of selfhood. But love to earth's values will rescue your human soul. Of cosmic life you only sustain, your will held fast in you, if cosmic life fully grasp you. Destructive lust for spirit then will kill awareness of self in you, but spirit-given will to earth makes the God in man do reign. You are being introduced to the practice of knowledge in these lessons, my dear friends. You should not understand the things being given to you in this way as theoretical matters. Rather will you experience the heart of the matter if you understand the fundamental conditions, that what you are being told here are the instructions from the Guardian of the Threshold himself, directly arising from what can be learned through contact with the guardian of the threshold. For it is not my intention to give theories during these class lessons, my dear friends. The intention is to let the spiritual word itself speak. Therefore, in the first lessons I mentioned how the school should be seen as having been founded by the spiritual world itself. That has been the nature of all mystery schools, that in them men spoke as representatives of the spiritual powers of the world. It must also remain the nature of the mystery schools. Therefore I have so strongly insisted on the earnestness required of all members of the class, without which no one can be a real member of this school of spiritual life. That is the earnest exhortation I wish to direct to you once again. My dear friends, consider this school as being constituted directly through the will of the spiritual world, and which we are trying to correctly interpret according to the conditions of our times in which we have entered after the darkness was over and a light has come again. A light which, however, has only manifested itself on earth poorly, because human beings have retained their old darkness. Yet the light is there, and only those who realize that the light is there will understand the nature and intentions of this spiritual school. And at the end I will speak again the first board. O man, you know yourself, so resounds the world word. You hear its soul powerful, you feel its spirit wasteness. Who speaks so world fastly? Who speaks so felt heartily? Does it act through space distant radiation in your senses being experience? Does it sound through time's wave weaves into your life's evolving stream? Is it you yourself who in space feeling, in experiencing time, creating the world, feeling void, sensing in space's emptiness of soul, because you have the force of thinking losing in the time-destroying stream? Thank you very much.